Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. This is an episode with Chris Sewall, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. We talked about that, and we actually had several rounds of dueling questions, which I've broken up into bite-sized chunks. This is one of them, and I hope you enjoy them. I hope my sponsors enjoy them. Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Topps, Upper Deck, and Panini. So thanks, Chris, and thanks, listeners, and here it is. Okay, when you're buying a collection from a person, you get more excited about a bunch of high-demand cards in that collection or a bunch of low-supply cards. High demand versus low supply.
Interesting. Yeah, I like everything. So I like high-end stuff. I like bulk stuff. I like it all. But probably my favorite niche, I talk about this on the channel, like what I call low demand, low supply, but not no demand. There has to be some level of demand to it. Huh?
My line. That's what I said.
Is it really?
Low supply, low demand. That's what I'll get. But exactly, no demand is a deal breaker. So you've got a monster box from this collector and you're making piles. One of them is low supply, low demand.
Low demand stuff, I particularly like to find and grade and have the only one. Like I got a pop two. Who knows where the other one is? I got one of them. I can set my asking price. I am the market. I like that game inside a lot. That's my favorite thing to find. And especially ones that you would just not think of. Like a random refractor out of 25 of a solid player, but not a major star. That card's never been graded before, this sort of thing.
I guess where I differ from you, I do exactly that, but I don't usually grade them.
Okay.
Grading's too much friction. I'll put price on there, not assuming that it's graded. Obviously, if it came out as a BGS 9.5 or a PSA 10, you'd get a bump. But if it's a raw card that's low supply, you still might have the only one.
That's true. I've found there's a lot of people who just collect graded.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're absolutely right with the raw stuff, but I like the graded step as well.
I'm writing that down, Chris.
Yeah. You'll be surprised at how many $20 cards that have never been graded before because it's like a 90s insert of Penny Hardaway or something. And you send it in for grading, it gets a 9, and it's suddenly a pop 1. How much you can now ask for that card and potentially get it.
There's something about buying a card from the dollar box and then sending it in to get graded. There's something seems wrong.
Yeah. Oh, something seems wrong. Oh,
why would be grading cards in a dollar box? But
yeah, no,
$5 box, the $10 box, the $20 box. Yeah.
I play the pop report game quite a bit.
Okay. That's a takeaway for me. Okay.
So you left in 2005. Beckett got into grading in 98. Is that right?
I think 99, but we were
99
in 98.
So what was like the discussion around that space? Obviously, at that point, you guys were a massive presence in the hobby from the monthly magazine. I assume that was the main thing you were doing at the time, the magazines and the pricing. Were you into the idea, or were you not so sure about grading in terms of the future?
I was really the main one that was hesitant, and I was the boss. I had the veto power, but my most trusted, sharpest lieutenants, guys that have been there a long time that I really respected, said, we need to do this. And you're being overly sensitive, overly conservative. We need to jump in. PSA is really getting traction now. SGC was already going too. It's not too late. And it probably was too late for the set registry. They just had a big lead on the set registry that we never caught up on. So I was the holdup, Chris. But then once we got in, because I said, I don't want to do a Me Too service. It's got to be different, better. It can't be a cookie cutter thing. We had inner sleeve. We had a bigger, more substantial slab. We had a different kind of guarantee than they had. On timer, it's free. We had the color coded labels or metallic. We had
half points, right? Big one.
And we had a pristine. So we had a lot of things. While I was there, I think we probably always were number 2 in volume, but we were a solid number 2.
Yeah.
Now, apparently not. But in the early 2000s, while I was there, we had all the business we could handle. And many of those graders are still there.
In the late 90s, I was working at a card store, and I thought grading was ridiculous. I thought it was like such a silly thing. So I would have been very hesitant as well. What was your main hesitation?
No, I didn't think it was silly.
No, but why were you hesitant?
Because of the criticism that we would get
of being a price guy.
That would be false. The false rumors. So I think it was just a little sensitive to the fact that everybody wouldn't fully embrace this. Of say, we started doing the basketball monthly and the football monthly and the hockey monthly. Nobody said, oh, that's stupid. They said, we can't wait to get it. Okay? Yeah. We're starting to do grading. They're thinking, why are you doing grading? And I just needed to tune that out and listen to my guys that said, we can do this and we can do it in the report card, for example. That wasn't the tipping point, but I'm just saying PSA did not have a report card. I thought if we do an inner sleeve, a more substantial slab, a report card, an on time or it's free guarantee, those are things that are going to take it to the next level. And PSA surely will respond in some way. It's not going to put them out of business or make them nervous, but it's going to add. It's like the world doesn't need another restaurant, but another good restaurant that's offering good food, good prices, all this stuff, something fresh. It was my, not risk aversion, because I didn't think we'd lose money on it. It was great from the beginning. The other problem we had is that when we started, Chris, maybe I haven't said this before. In order to start it, we had to cannibalize the price guide team for a little while.
Okay.
So our best guys that were doing the price guides, which was our bread and butter, which was our meal ticket, had to stop doing that. And we had to let other people do that work while they went over and seeded and incubated the grading. So I was finally willing to do that for some period of time, which was 6 months to a year.
Okay.
That we were shorthanded in the price guide in order to get grading going. Now, after grading got going, we could hire more graders, we could hire more price guide guys and all that. So yeah, there was some reason to it. It wasn't emotional, and I'm so glad we did it.
Did you get any of the criticism you were concerned about?
A little bit,
but not an overwhelming amount.
We weren't gouging. We were providing alternative. Yeah. And in many cases, we were preferred alternative for relic cards, and thicker cards were coming more in vogue.
Sure.
We were the preferred choice for those. Because of our slab. And we had the benefit coming in then to engineer some of those things into our process. So no regrets whatsoever and very little criticism comparatively. Now I think the company's maybe even known more for grading than cataloging and pricing. So
yeah, probably is, right?
Again, not my company, but it's my name. Okay. What happens when you don't buy a collection? Because I remember when I used to try to buy collections, I wasn't successful every time. Let's just say sometimes the person had a wrong attitude about what they were going to get out of it, because I was always willing to pay a reasonable price to get the collection. But what happens when you don't buy a collection?
Yeah, so that's changed over time for me as I've become more experienced. Now there's very rarely an issue. My general mentality is I'm not looking to get a bargain. I'm looking to pay the fair price so that both sides are happy. I generally over-present. Like I say, I can pay this is why, I can pay this for this stuff, I can pay this for this stuff, I can't really pay much for this stuff. I really break it down a lot. So they at least know where I'm coming from. It's very rare today where somebody gets upset by an offer I'm making. But yeah, it does happen once in a while. And in those cases, I just have to accept that there's nothing really to do there.
Have you been?
It used to happen a lot more.
Have you been played off against somebody else?
You mean, I have another buyer?
I've got another buyer?
Yeah, I usually don't play that game. If somebody goes there, if they're clearly playing that game, I'll probably just drop out. If I think they're being genuine and they're saying, hey, look, I'm interested in selling to you, but I just want you to know, then I might just say, hey, here's my number. You can take it or leave it. And often they'll leave it because they know they can just use that number to play it off the next person and get 10% more from the next person or $10 more, whatever. But I don't really mind that. I see that as part of the game.
Are these remote negotiations? Or are they bringing their stuff over? Are you going over there? How much is shoe leather?
So it's both. I do a lot of remote. I do a lot of deals through the mail now. The channel has really provided that opportunity. But I also do a lot of local deals in person, and that's where more likely someone is to play me off somebody else. If somebody like ships me a collection, they're probably not really in a position I'll ship it back if they don't like my offer, of course. But it's more in person where they're more likely to try to play the I have another buyer game. And it's usually the high end stuff where that happens. It's not in bulk personal collections. That doesn't really happen much.
It's like you were saying about low supply, low demand. It's not just the dollar boxes. It's more fun to buy an interesting collection that doesn't have grails in it.
Yeah.
That they're going to have some expectation of 6 or 7 figures just because they've got several boxes of cards.
Yeah. And when you bought a lot of collections, it starts to get more exciting when you see something you've never seen, even if it's not worth a whole lot, just as interesting.
My thoughts exactly.